Never in my life would I think the White Sox would lose 100 games in 3 straight seasons. And I'm pretty sure my guest thought the same. Let's discuss on today's episode of Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, lifelong Sox fan and contributor for SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fan Side of the Network. I've also covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Well, Brett Ballantini, editor of SouthsideSox.com, joins me to discuss the historical significance of the White Sox having 3 straight 100-loss seasons, how the franchise can, go about rebuilding trust with the fan base, and then I want to talk about what his offseason wish list is. And Brett, thank you for joining me. And do you regret maybe not having a tracking of how the White Sox could avoid losing 100 losses for the 3rd straight season? Because they've made franchise history yet again.
Listen, to their credit, they made me stop my futility watch and all that, the daily drudgery of having to track how bad this team was and whether they would end up being the worst team in history, which, by pretty much every measure from the 19th century on, they were the worst. So they did give me a break there. However, it was a sucker punch. We had a little bit of hope after the All-Star break, and then the way the season's ending up, you just got to wonder, is 2026 going to be more like 2023, 24, and 25?
All right. Did, though, this season have a little bit of a different feel, like you said, compared to, 2023, for example, was just, such a gut punch because the contention window gets slammed shut so abruptly. It's just so much dysfunction. They fire Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams thinking, hey, you're going to get this out of, perspective from somebody outside the organization to come in and run things, and then it's Chris Getz getting promotion. Mm-hmm. So it's just absolutely crazy. But then this year, at least, maybe there's a chance to get out of this abyss with this young core that it's emerged.
There's a different feel, sure. I mean, still losing, and they're going to end up with a season that is fairly identical to just 2 years ago. Okay, so they didn't take a dip into the 120s losses. You're right. There's a little bit of up-talking. We have Colson Montgomery, who looks like he could be a bona fide star. Looks like maybe. Kyle Teal certainly is hitting the heck out of the ball. Got to find a position for him to play. Certainly, there's a core where there hasn't been for a while, and even the early 2020s core sort of dissolved pretty quickly. So, maybe this is actually building towards something. Problem is that something is still a ways off.
Yeah, but the one thing that I like compared to, say, 2018, the other time I think when they lost another 100 games, was they are actually now losing enough. They are actually going to probably clinch being at the top of the tankathon standings, which hopefully, now there's a lottery. It's a lot different than what it was a few years ago, but it could give you a shot to actually draft a true franchise-altering player like they missed out on in 2018 because, they had to beat the Royals 4 times when they shouldn't have.
Yeah. Yeah, but they can still, assuming they're going to finish with the best odds, I think they can still end up as low as 7th. Tell me what you think they're going to end up doing. And the chances of them still getting that number 1 pick, I don't like their odds, but maybe, listen, if they get that number 1 pick, maybe the sun is really coming up in the morning and things are going to be better.
Yeah, the nice thing is that this was, I remember I kept harping, and you and I talked about it last year when we did episodes together about how, man, we don't have the silver lining of that number 1 pick. And then it's like, well, actually, this was probably the draft to not have the number 1 pick. Next year's the draft to have the number 1 pick. And it is looking to be a deep draft where you can actually, even if you fell to 7, obviously it's not ideal, but you could still get a really good player. But it would be really nice to actually, if you did end up, let's say, the 3rd overall pick, you have a chance to still get a dude with that pick. Whereas compared to 2019, it's like, well, after Bobby Witt Jr., we're sort of guessing here. That type of stuff.
Yeah, they're picking shortstops now. As long as they're not just picking catchers who can't catch or first basemen who aren't tall enough to field the position, that alone tells you that hopefully they're going to get something of use next summer.
All right, so I like that you brought up Colson Montgomery because I saw Aaron Judge make history off of Jonathan Cannon when he hit that 3-1 blast on Wednesday. And I thought, man, how great would it be if Colson Montgomery one day hits 50 dingers in 4 straight seasons. Then I thought, man, it just always feels like when we think we could potentially dream, nothing ever pans out, and that's the other thing, like going through this 100 loss, just futility. It's like, man, can I really trust something panning out potentially?
Yeah, I think what's great about Colson is, as much as we say, oh my God, look at the batting average. I mean, should we care? No, I suppose we shouldn't care. To me, it's what he's done in the field. A guy who, maybe came in sort of promoted as maybe average, maybe able to field shortstop. And I think most people are saying, no, he's not going to be able to hold it as a shortstop in the majors. And he's been such a positive defensively. I don't pretend to understand all the defensive metrics, but the fact that he's got ability there to add value. Defense can slump, but I mean, it's less likely to slump. And we've seen how Colson can slump offensively, but even if he's not hitting for maybe a week or two, not putting the ball over the fence for a week or two, the fact that he can just run out there at shortstop and be a positive influence on the team is a big plus, I think, for his future average plus player, if not a star player.
Yeah, and when I was looking at coming into this Yankee series, I was like, if he does not hit a home run, I'm going to be severely disappointed. And then he hits probably one of the most, no doubt about, home runs you have ever seen in your life. But one of the things that I thought too, that game was such a personification because they just couldn't score enough, obviously, but they still had the lead, and then the bullpen can't hold up in high leverage. And I think that's another thing that has been totally overlooked. If they just made just some small, more incremental improvement, maybe you're not as bad. You're still bad, but you're not like, oh my gosh, this is the worst stretch of baseball that the franchise has ever had.
Yeah, I mean, in a run differential sense, this team should be 10-ish games better than they are. They've lost so many close games, and you can put that in the bullpen. No, it's not at all in the bullpen because the whole first half, 0 players hit the ball. Okay, I guess Miguel Vargas for a month. I'm going to put a ton of it on the offense and not really on this poor bullpen with guys forcing the positions, they're not expecting, to pitch. But yeah, you could say this team is close. This team might be also close to 110, 120 losses, but, it does seem to be on an upswing. And you'd hope that there's some tinkering there because I'm not sure there's a ton next year, at least, coming from the system to really help a lot. But you think eventually guys are going to matriculate and add to that bullpen, add to that rotation, and tighten up this team so that they're 50-50 in close games. I mean, that's all we're looking for. This season we look so different if they just could win a few close games, and they're just unable to do it.
All right, I do want to get into the offseason after the break, but before we do, I like that you brought up, sort of just being just a little bit close, but then, not knowing how much is going to come up. Next season, though, I don't think we're going to get as much of excitement with, like you said, with guys. Maybe you get to see Brandon Montgomery, Hagen Smith, and Noah Schultz, but it just seems like you're not going to have that infusion of talent, of young talent, to be like, hey, let's get excited next season.
Yeah, there are no locks coming in at all. Braden, I know they want to push, but come on, that's going to be a stretch, maybe second half. And then what's he going to do? He's still just one guy. There's really no offense coming. No offense that they don't already have. William Bergoya maybe. But he's a type of player that they already have on the team in terms of a big thumper or something like that. No, I think top to bottom, I'm not sure there's going to be a lot of help. Obviously not in the way we've seen it in 2025, but I think next year there's going to be scant help, and that's no indictment. That's just what it is. We've brought a ton of guys up, and none of them have really drowned, which is terrific. But yeah, next year, this core is going to have to take that step forward because I don't think there are reinforcements. Some of those blue chip pitchers in that maybe see second half, maybe seeing a Grant Taylor role where they're coming a little bit out of the bench, just get their feet wet. Zero major contributors coming from the system next year. And, again, not an indictment, but these guys are going to have to sink or swim on their own.
All right, well, let's get Brett's wish list for the offseason, and that is after the break. What do you get when you have a bald eagle standing on top of a silverback gorilla riding a T-Rex? Confidence, pure confidence. And if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. That's exactly where Rugiet Go Long comes in. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula so you can get hard and go the distance. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. And the process is simple. Connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, and if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? head to Rugiet.com. That's RUGIET.com and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB, and make sure to use our code so they know we sent you. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, you can get the audio version of the show on places such as Apple or Spotify. So make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. And hey, maybe we'll get some hope. I'm here with Brett Ballantini of SouthsideSox.com, part of the SB Nation. And Brett, again, where can we find all, your great content? Because I know you're running like 2 or 3 White Sox websites and
Southside Sox. SB Nation drop podcasts for everybody. So we went to Fans First Sports Network. So that's we're operating under Sox Populi there. We do some writing there as well. So that's really the two to juggle. Not too bad. As long as people don't just force me to go somewhere else, I'll stick around forever. Just they always sort of force me to go somewhere else. Todd, what's going on?
I don't know. And you guys are, I see you on TikTok now.
We are going crazy on TikTok and Facebook. Melissa Sage-Willenbach, a big plus for us there, who leads a lot of that social media stuff, and Christina Erdo as well. So yeah, we're trying to make our inroads where we can.
Have you found yet, when you look at the TikTok, like people will argue with you over something you've said over 45 seconds, and you want to be like, look, why don't you look at the whole show? I'm trying to direct, like for me, like I'm trying to direct you to the show. I've been having arguments lately about how I said pitch framing isn't a skill. And some of those folks on TikTok just lost their mind. And I'm like, well, it's because if there's a full automated strike zone, go with the full automated strike zone.
Wow. TikTok, I would not have thought would be the demographic to argue about an automatic strike zone. How about that? No, I think so far people are just like, hey, thanks for doing a little quick recap after every game and other little interesting historical tidbits. So I think so far it's been pretty positive. Thankfully, I'm a couple degrees shielded from that. So definitely a recommended position. Stay away from it if you can.
All right. So what moves do you want to see the White Sox make this offseason?
I mean, there's the real wish list. And then there's the wish list that's, not going to happen. The real wish list is to be extremely modest and hope that Getz can have some of the success he had, not specifically with Rule 5, but some of the waiver pickups. Granted, you pick up like 20 guys, his batting average isn't terrific. That said, you got your Mike Vassell, you got Shane Smith. There's been some pickups made just in saying, hey, why not give these guys a try? We're pretty much first on the waiver claim list. Next year we won't be, but we'll still be close. Again, you can't waive money at players. I don't know when that's ever going to happen. I doubt it's going to happen. Certainly not under Jerry Reinsdorf, especially with labor unrest on the horizon. So the things we should do, like get a real outfielder, get some thump into the lineup, it's just not going to happen. So I can talk about a wish list. Hooray for me. It's not going to happen. Might as well spit in the wind. White Sox obviously they still need arms. There are not reinforcements coming. There's a foundation of a rotation pretty much. But obviously there's a great rotation needs reinforcements, and this is not a great rotation. So, I mean, top to bottom, they still need help. They've taken a nice step forward. There need to be reinforcements, and this is going to be a real test of Chris Getz. He struck some gold this year, and, good for him. I'll give him some credit. Is that luck? Is it fluke? Let's hope it isn't. Sox have played some good hunches on players, parlayed them into even, trades, some of which I didn't agree with, but you just got to keep that pumping because there's no other way to do it. It's not really going to be trades. What are you going to trade? Very little to barter with. So you just have to keep scanning the waiver wire, making smart picks. And if not smart picks, just make a bunch of picks and see maybe if a couple guys surface.
I would like to see them, though, maybe leverage some of those relievers on one-year deals that are looking to bounce back. Like I think Devin Williams, maybe some team does try to see if that airbender reclaims itself and they give him a multi-year deal. But I think he's going to, for example, be on a one-year make deal good. I think he would be the ideal guy because we'll have a tiny bit of money to spend. Because say if they want to get back to even $89 million, like the payroll was at opening day, there's only $37.1 million committed next year. So, and plus with pre-arb, so they might want to do that. So I would like to actually see them spend just a time. I'm breaking my rule. I want to actually see them spend money on the bullpen, but I only want to see it on one-year deals. That's it.
Yeah, and in a reasonable way. This idea that you're going to spend $50 million on a reliever is is sort of nutty. I mean, I suppose if you're the Yankees or if you're a returning World Series champion, hey, just push it. A team that's building, a team that's on the upswing, or a team that's even just trying to go from maybe division winner to pennant winner, it's a strange way to spend money when there are other holes. So yeah, I agree with you. Just try to mine those guys, and if you could be a little more aggressive and not just have your ceiling be Cam Boozer, I think that's going to benefit the team in the long run for sure. And just get some names in. If it's 5 on a cheaper roll, or one guy for 10 million, or 5 for 10, get the 5, because you need the bodies here still. White Sox are not a superstar laden team by a long shot, and so you need to have a spring training where there's like 100 guys showing up and all with a reasonable chance of making the team.
Yeah, and I like how you also brought up the needing things to trade. That's one of the reasons why I would say leverage the bullpen market, because most teams lately are not signing a lot of guys now on, in free agency, unless you're a contender trying to start right away. Now, most of them are like the Padres. Fine, I'll try to see what I got, and then if I need more, I'll just trade for it. And that would be a great way, because I do think next year, I know there's the optimists out there that are like, oh, if you make a few signings, which you and I think we both know, it's probably not going to happen. It's frustrating, but it's probably not going to happen. But you could still use next year as a springboard to get more pieces by exploiting the trade market that has been crazy for relievers. And I think it's going to be crazy again, because, as you said, the labor issues are coming up.
Yeah. And the division's terrible. The division has fallen back to us. After 1 year, it's fallen back to us, to the point where going into next season, we might not be the predicted last place team, which is bananas, but it is, because the Twins are easily as lousy as us. So the fact that there's something attainable to make some moves in the division, because you still play your division a ton, and the league itself isn't all that great. That's only going to help the White Sox. Maybe it's going to be just this false sense of confidence they get from winning some of these games. But hey, you can only win the games on the schedule. So the White Sox they almost have no choice but to take a step forward next year, and a string of seasons where they haven't taken any steps forward. So good for them that they play in a terrible division.
I like, though, that you brought up to the Rule 5. Now, most teams, especially in big markets, are like, we should never care about the Rule 5. But the White Sox, Getz showed that, hey, you can actually get 2 pieces. Now, obviously, they had to claim one guy off of waivers, but still, through the Rule 5 and keeping them on the roster, you can actually get help in your pitching staff, whether it's bullpen or your starting rotation, by exploiting being at the top of the Rule 5 draft, which they're going to be again. I think they're going to pick 2, because the Rockies will pick 1. So you got a chance to add another stud that another team is probably going to be foolish enough to not put on the 40-man roster. Like the White Sox are probably not going to put Peyton Pallette on the 40-man roster.
Yeah, the 2 best pitchers on the team who are still on the team are the Rule 5 guys. So, certainly there's some luck involved there, but you're making smart picks. Shane Smith was he was the consensus #1 Rule 5 pick. So the White Sox just had to fill his name in on the line, but they still did it. They still did the right things and brought him along in the right way. Gave him the coaching that he needed to take the step as a guy who had never thrown a pitch in the major leagues. And Mike Vassal's even, that's just even crazier. Mike Vassal's a guy who we think his potential could be even better than Smith. So, wow, those are real couple feathers in Getz's cap. You got to give him credit there. And if you can even get one guy next year, we're starting to rely too much on Rule 5, but why not? When you had a year like you did here, you better make one pick. Just who knows what's going to happen? You just better make that pick.
Yeah, especially you're picking higher in the draft again, so you can at least get a viable guy. You're probably getting a guy that's a bubble, 40-man that just the team is like, hey, we got to, like, especially a Brewers. You could take somebody from the Brewers. You could take somebody from the Rays who are like, we've got so many guys that we can't just put them on the 40-man. So that's where you're in. Now, if you're picking, down in the 20s or 30s, don't even bother with the Rule 5, because most of those guys, they're not going to help you, because you're probably picking at guys that have no chance whatsoever. Well, I want to get Brett's take on if it's possible that the White Sox can actually rebuild the fans' trust with Jerry Reinsdorf still owning the team. And we'll get to that after the break. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel is quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit more energy to Sundays. And I've been saying it for a while. The traditional money line, spreads, and over-unders, they're fun to play. But if you want to win some big money, or at least double or triple your cash, play their props, parlays, and futures. Think Chicago's going to win on Sunday and hit the over of 47.5? Well, it is at plus 270. And if it hits and you put, say, $10 on it, you just won $27, nearly tripling your money. You could go to the money line / total points parlay 2, where Chicago wins and the over gets hit at 55.5. And that is at plus 500. So possibly if that does hit and you threw $10 on it, that could pay out $50. FanDuel makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, where they get their podcasts. This show's available on all major podcast platforms. Here with Brett Ballantini of SouthsideSox.com, part of the SB Nation and Fans First. Oh, gosh, I forgot. The FFS site where you guys have your podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally forgot. So yeah, there. So you can get all their content. I recommend that you check all that stuff out. So, Brett, I was at Rate Field last Sunday for Podcast Row, and Sox marketing and promotions director Michael Downey admitted, the franchise is actually trying to rebuild the fans' trust. They know that they've broken the trust. So do you believe that they can actually rebuild the trust while Jerry Reinsdorf owns this team?
Well, Todd, I mean, we could have a whole 3 or 4 podcasts over this, because as the guy running, if not the biggest, certainly the oldest site, we were not invited to Podcast Row. I don't know what their deal is with us. So I'll say no. I'm going to just say no. No, listen, White Sox fans flock and follow. And this year there's been reasons to get excited. So that's great. And there's even the fans that say, well, now they're fun. They've reached fun bad. So now I'm more engaged. I don't really understand those fans, but okay, I guess better than bad, horrible, awful, in the gutter bad. But what this year has come, it's on what? The fumes of the fan. We're coming because we want to come. We're paying attention because we want to be there. I'm not sure the White Sox have done, maybe I won't say anything, done very little. They had the benefit of the anniversary of the World Series as well this season. I don't see the White Sox doing much at all. And if we're going to kick it all the way upstairs with trust in Jerry Reinsdorf, I mean, that's a rhetorical question. That's just not going to happen. There's no way for that to happen. And I don't see any effort to make that happen. Not from Jerry and not from any of the sweet class there on 35th and Shields.
Well, and the interesting thing is, okay, the White Sox have just lost, again, 100 games for the 3rd straight season. I remember Sleeper on White Sox, whoever's running that Twitter account, had a great tweet about how, okay, for this thing to turn around now, you actually have to put your faith into the people that helped create this mess in Jerry Reinsdorf, and Chris Getz was the director of player development and now the GM. And that's a tough thing to reconcile, because it is like, you want to have hope, but the guys that helped create this issue right in the beginning, and there were other people, obviously Kenny and Rick, but they're gone. Tony La Russa is still in the organization, although it sounds like, you don't hear much of him being the shadow GM anymore, but still, like, the people that were responsible for helping get to this point, they're the ones that also are supposed to fix it. And it's hard, it's hard to resolve that.
Yeah, Chris Getz wasn't a broadcaster. He wasn't running promotions. He was part of the decision-making. He's a key part of the decision-making that brought Pedro Grifol over from Kansas City. He had roots with Kansas City. We can't forget that this is still, at the moment we're recording, I believe the 7th worst White Sox team in history. The best they can do is tied for 9th best. This is a top 10, over 125 years, top 10 terrible White Sox team. Even all the new personnel coming in to make these decisions, and metrics, and Brian Bannister, and Josh Barfield, listen, they got to wear 100-something losses. You sort of can't. I mean, it's great that we're up talking because we were in the 120s last year. Wonderful. We should have never been in the 120s. We're still a 100-loss team, 3 years in a row, never been done with the White Sox. 2 years never done by the White Sox. So, let's not, pat too many heinies quite yet, because this is still very much a losing franchise. And if there's just a little crack of sunlight out there, wonderful, but that can close up pretty quick too. This team's got to be working on every level as hard as they can to win back, to win on the field, to win fans back, to get a better profile broadcast wise. And I see them doing very little of that.
I think one suggestion, and I did kind of hint at it when I was down there, was, kind of do more though of like what you did, like obviously spend to win. I mean, that's the only winning and putting, finally getting that $100 million contract and it actually working out would probably be the way that you would win back some trust. But some other ways is, for example, like what the Blackhawks did in 2007 and 2008, once they got Kane and Taves, was they put those guys out in front. And then they put the actual like good human beings that they have in the organization out in front talking, that, so we can see that. And I think that's what they need to do more of, at least on the margins, is increase the access. Make sure, like how they had from the 108 night, how they had the shy bums and Sox on 35th celebrating Southpaw's 21st birthday. As you said, do more of those stuff, because those things can help, at least on the margins. Obviously, at the end of the day, though, you still got to win.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. Anything's great. We'll give them credit for anything. Those seem to be very, very much on the margins, but it's something, and it's not something the White Sox have always done. In fact, it's something, those are the types of things the Sox have shied away from. There are other franchises who've been doing things for 5, 10, 20 years that the White Sox still haven't even sniffed. And yeah, they got to get their act together. This idea that the fans are just going to show up, I mean, it takes some real brass to be like, we're going to trot out a 120 loss team and you're going to come back. And the truth is, to some degree, they do. We love baseball. We love the White Sox. We're connected to them. But man, if they could just check 10% of their arrogance, I think some really good things would happen. And with this young team, with some hope, with some stars, maybe not quite Kane and Taves, but on a level White Sox wise, relatively speaking, guys who want to be there, excited to play together, that chemistry that's building, those are good things. I mean, there's no way you can shake your head and not see that. A lot more needs to be done, but it's a start.
I like that, check the arrogance, because it sounded like, again, the first time I've ever really interacted with the White Sox front office was on Sunday. Or at least the business people, and they were all good to me. And I'm not trying to brag; I'm just saying they were. But I have heard other stories where, there's a lot of other guys that do still need to check, especially the guy at the top. That's why I want those people that are good to try to. You got to push the guy at the top to the back of the room, where all he's doing is authorizing the budget, and try to convince him that authorize a decent budget.
Yeah, that's nice to say, and we'll see if it will ever happen. I mean, you get enough good people in, you hope that you're just going to push. It takes a long time to turn the cruise ship around, but as long as you're in the process of making that turn, I suppose that's something good. Some of us are going to be impatient about it. Some of us aren't going to live to see it. But that said, just again, let's up talk it rather than, oh man, again. We certainly have a little bit more brightness than, say, the Colorado Rockies, an ownership that's just as rough, and I'm just not sure there's as much sunlight there as the White Sox have. So hey, we're only 29th. Todd, how about that?
Hey, that's progress right there.
It's because that's one better. I mean, we were probably like 35th last year, but yes, that's one better. Let's just keep moving, at least one better, White Sox.
I don't think they were 35th. I think the Birmingham Barons were better than the actual White Sox. I think they were like 67th or that type of stuff.
Could very well be.
But hey, there's a championship organization in the White Sox. It's at Birmingham. There we go.
You just can't shut those guys down. They're just going to scrap and win. They say, you know what? We're a losing organization. No way. We're going to just keep taking the crown. So, yeah, congratulations, Birmingham. 2 straight. Yeah.
Although before we wrap up, I saw the video on Future Sox, and this just shows you, like, again, where they've kind of done something like, hey, we're winning the minor leagues. The celebration was the guys just touching gloves. I'm sure they went into the locker room and had fun, but like the on-field, it was nowhere near like you would think a team winning a championship, because they're probably like, well, it's the minor leagues. We're just supposed to develop. Winning is nice, but development matters more. I want to get to the show.
Yeah. They're on the road, but they're in Alabama. They're not far. They're not in New York. I understand it's a weird circumstance given the suspended game, but okay, any of the snacks, any of the cases of beer, I'm pretty sure they didn't like go bad or get stolen. So yeah, well, do your best, White Sox. It just goes to show they don't know what to do. It's been years and years and years.
Yeah, it was just interesting to me. I'm like, oh, You're not like mobbing each other at the mound. It was just like, normal.
They're all pros. We couldn't.
Yeah, like,
come on, I got 2 rings now, man. Forget it.
Yeah, Rican Mashida's like, all right, man, I'm going to stone cold some of these in the locker room. I'm saving it for that time. Well, anyways, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night, every game, every night until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or listen to your podcast. And Brett, really quick, give a chance. Where can we, again, always find your great stuff?
Southside Sox is where we're at, podcasting at Fans First Sports Network, and that is Sox Populi.
All right, well, I'll be back on Monday with who I think should be the team's pitcher of the year and the final minor league Monday report of the season. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion on the episode page on YouTube via email, lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com, or leave them at X for me, Twitter at LockedOnSox or at Todd J Dub. And also make sure to like today's episode on YouTube or leave a 5-star review at wherever you get your podcast. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. I'll see you Monday.